didn't actually choose the title of my talk, It's Past the People. And unfortunately, for somebody round about my age, it's quite difficult to say those words without all coming over a bit Citizen Smith. And for anybody who, thank you about for anybody who hasn't had the pleasure of Citizen Smith, he was the protagonist of a late 70s sitcom, a slightly down at luck revolutionary from South London, who, aside from Past the People, his catchphrase was freedom for tooting. And whilst I don't share his views of a revolution, I do share a view that there is a revolution that's needed. And it's a revolution about breaking down the barriers between people that live and work in cities and those that control and create them, so property developers, local authorities, housing associations, those kind of organisations. And actually, what you see here in the background is a visual which was created via Commonplace by the residents and people who work in London Bridge. It's a vision for future space in the area, created as a collaboration between the people who live there, various designers, and the local authorities. So what's the problem? As I'm sure has been rehearsed a lot today, cities of the future, they have a wealth of ideas, energy, and talent. And everybody, I would argue, cares about where they live. It's the quality of where you live is one of the biggest indicators of your quality of life. And yet when new places are being designed, when places are being improved, hardly anybody gets involved, hardly anybody shows up to the meetings. Those who do tend to be retired white people, usually there to complain about something. Why? They don't have the time, they feel intimidated, and most often, they don't think they're going to be listened to. They simply don't trust the system. So our solution to this is very simple. It's about turning people's perceptions about the place that they live into data, and then doing interesting things with the data, with the focus of which being gathering new insights about the places. Of course, there's lots of data out there. You've seen a lot of it already today. It comes from social media, it comes from Internet of Things devices. This is a social media example. It's a slightly silly one, but somebody's parked a car on a tram track in Nottingham, and somebody's tweeted it immediately. So it's out in the public domain within seconds, and I think it took the operator about 45 minutes to be able to reflect the same event. So cities are in real time. There's information out there that is expressing perceptions about things that are going on. And our challenge, I think, is how do we collect that? How do we process it? What do we do with it? So, Commonplace. There we go. Commonplace is all about people being able to express what they feel about a place as it's happening, whether it's via our app or whether it's via social media, such as Twitter. And the kind of things that we can then do with that information is to create sentiment maps of an area. Sorry, the film's skipping a little bit. So here you see a sentiment map of an area in Waltham Forest, where we're doing a project. The blobs, each blob represents a group or individual comments, and the colours represent people's perceptions. So red being where people feel there's some improvement, green feeling where people feel positive. And of course, from that, we can get all sorts of interesting information about the people and what they want to see. In a perfect design process, this information then feeds into an iterative design process where designs that are being created from a very early stage can be collaborated on by people who are living or working in these areas. We do this in a way that you don't have to go to an event, you don't have to spend half an hour answering a survey, you can do it on your mobile phone in a matter of seconds. It's kind of the Twitter version of planning, if you like. Everything's open and transparent. That's a really, really important thing about everything we do. Every comment that anybody makes is open for anybody else to read, and that creates a kind of platform of trust that we've been able to build on. And all of this information creates, as I mentioned, insight, and we offer this insight to our customers, to property developers, to local authorities, because that helps them create better designs, and it helps them collaborate with the people who are going to be using the stuff that they're designing. And whilst we do individual projects, and we do a lot of those. We're also now building up this kind of insight as a platform whereby we can cover boroughs, even cities, with the Commonplace approach. So one of the things that we have learned over the last kind of year and a half is that if you want to get people to say what they feel, which is what we're all about, you have to go to the places where people already are. It's no good games trying to get them to come to you. And so we've developed our platform to be able to integrate with all of the various different touch points, some of which I've mentioned here. It's extremely integrated with social media, but equally we've designed it to work really well in events, because placemaking and design often has events. And we've worked a lot with local blogs, people who are already talking about local issues, other local social networks, and so on. So I'm going to show you 3 short examples, and then I've got a very quick film to show you at the end. So this is an example from Peckham. The background of this project, of which the client was Southwark Council, was that the station redesign in Peckham had been problematic for a relatively long period of time. Various attempts at getting a solution which was acceptable to everybody had failed. Southwark Council, to their credit, decided to commission what they called a co-design process, and we were part of a collaboration with Ash Sakula Architects. One of the things that we've been able to do across all the projects we've done is to reach a different group of people, and that's really one of the key things that our value proposition is based on. This shows an example actually from West Hampstead where we managed to reach younger people. So the blue bars are the people that Commonplace managed to reach, the green bars are the people that were reached through their traditional events and so on. So we've managed to fill in a whole gap of the demographic, people who just simply hadn't been involved in any other way. And because we collect the data and we collect data about who's making the comments as well, we can then do some quite interesting things, looking at, for example, splits of age groups against perceptions. And out of that comes some very interesting things. This is from Peckham. And one of the things that everybody in almost equal proportions cared about was places to sit in the area. And of course, it turns out that places to sit are important for young people, they're kind of social spaces, but for older people, if you have places to sit that are equally spaced along the streets, they're much more likely to go out because they know that there are places to rest. And the data that we collect, we, at every opportunity, play back to the community. So again, in Peckham, what this data created was, along with other data that was collected on the project, was a series of local, very, very, very low-tech publications, photocopied paper that were done bi-weekly throughout a period of the process that told the community what people were talking about and gave them a call to action to get involved. The second example's a different type of project. The customer here was Grosvenor. The project is a large city development in Cambridge, which is providing housing and a world-class sports facility for the city, as well as regenerating Cambridge United Football Stadium. This project has, again, been going on for a long time. Grosvenor have an extremely long-term approach to the developments that they do. But there are some controversial elements to it. For example, part of the development is being done in and around a bit of greenbelt. And whilst the benefits for the city are huge, and for the people who live in the city, previously they hadn't managed to mobilise enough of the people who were getting benefit from the scheme. They'd only heard from the people who were opposing the scheme. And so what we managed to do was to get out an order of magnitude more people to take part in the conversation. And that just presented a more representative view of the people in that community, of the benefits of what was going on. One of the things here was that Cambridge United supporters were likely to be much more supportive of the scheme because it was regenerating their stadium. So one of the things that we were able to do was to show all of the data with those people removed from the equation. So it's clear that even with those kind of self-selecting people taken out, there was still a very supportive view of the scheme. And for our customers, some of the benefits that come out are cost savings. When you're preparing planning submissions, you have to do a statement of community involvement. You have to have data supporting your application. A lot of that can be auto-provided from our platform. So it takes a lot of work out of the jobs for our customers, as well as giving them this level of trust, which they didn't previously have. And then finally, we're doing quite a lot of work in transport and mobility. We have our first US client, which is very exciting, which is the city of Boulder, Colorado. And we're using Twitter quite heavily there because it's a very technologically early adopter city. So people are being able to tweet pictures of stuff that's going on, and those are pulled automatically into the Commonplace platform. And similarly, we're doing some mining of social media. This is an example we did for the Transport Systems Catapult, which is based up in Milton Keynes. It's a live Twitter map of everybody who's tweeting about their commute between London and Milton Keynes. And it can show not only the sentiment shown on a map of all of those tweets, but it can also show, as you see, the history of sentiment broken down by various different modes of transport. And we're also involved in one of the 3 trials of autonomous vehicles funded by Innovate UK, the one based in the Greenwich Peninsula. And this is all about how this autonomous technology is going to impact on the urban landscape. It's not about the autonomous technology itself, it's about how people respond to it, both kind of on the street, you know, cyclists and other road users, but also how it affects the local economy, how it affects visitors to the area and so on. So finally, the case study, which has a very short film, is about Mini Holland in Waltham Forest. So Waltham Forest, the Borough of Waltham Forest is our customer. They're doing a borough-wide cycling regeneration scheme, and Commonplace has been used to look at people's perceptions of an area, to feed all of that data into the design process, and to provide insight. And as you'll see from the film, everybody in the council, including the deputy leader, is taking part in that. And this is just a diagram to show how we have built up in Waltham Forest a strategic platform for the council based on a number of building blocks. So I'm just going to play this film. Hopefully it'll play.
The aims of Mini Holland are to get more people walking and cycling a lot more of the time. You've got everyday people cycling on normal streets and using it as a really viable mode of transport. It's important to engage not just with residents but with anyone that uses the streets of the borough. But it's particularly important because probably every single one of them will be affected by the project, so it's really important that we get as many people involved as possible. We're doing surveys with people to find out what they think about the streets and places as they are, so we're asking people to really pinpoint in quite a lot of detail what aspects of the place and aspects of the street that they like and what they don't like and what they'd like to see changed, which has been really good. The amount of technical feedback and advice we've got from people has been quite surprising, really, how much knowledge people have about not just their own place, but actually what they want to see happen to that place and what they think will work and what won't work. Details such as the curb line and things and the level difference between the footway and the cycleway, and it's actually a lot of people do want to see really positive change, which is what we're doing. I think the best thing is it's so instant and so interactive that we can reach a massive audience with it, whereas before we'd be posting out leaflets and printing off copious amounts of hard copies of documents and all sorts, spending a lot of money on it. Whereas this, it's instant, it gets the message out there straight away to as many people as we want to, which is absolutely brilliant. We can advertise it on Twitter, we can advertise it on Facebook, on our website, we can email out, we collect all the data and contact details of people that have used it in the past. I also really like about Commonplace about how you can, as a project team, we can really get involved in how the consultation and the engagement works. So rather than thinking of it as a paper document, you think of it as this kind of three-dimensional being. I think a vast amount of support has come out of the consultation. One of the main issues has been car parking, I would say. But what's been interesting is when we've done the research and asked businesses how their customers travel to their shops, a lot of them say, or a very high percentage say, my customers need car parking, they drive, they get out, they shop, and that's it. Whereas actually when we asked visitors, they said a very small proportion actually drove there, most of them walked or got the bus. Our deputy leader likes to tweet a lot, so he's constantly asking for results and getting those out there. And it's great because he can actually log in and get the results himself if he wants. He can see the percentages and things. So that's been really good in having that kind of instant feedback loop. Internally, it's helped us to kind of inform our design team about what the public want to see in an area, and we can basically build in all the feedback into the entire project, which is brilliant, and that's kind of the whole purpose of engagement. We've used the Commonplace information to make infographics, which have proved to be a really successful way of engaging people, not just asking them what they want, but actually telling them what they told us, which I think is a really important part of engagement as well. We'll also be using the information to prepare a consultation report and present that back to councillors, which in turn is how we will then get approval for the whole scheme. It really kind of is the political kind of workhouse behind the project, is the whole consultation and engagement. It's a brilliant project. It's the first of its kind in the UK, really. It's the first really comprehensive cycling project over a wide area, so we're doing an entire borough. So I find that really, really exciting, and I think that's what excites a lot of other people about the project as well.
So that's all from me. I was asked again to give you a kind of little takeaway tidbit. And what I think is that technology can be a fantastic catalyst for trust. And I think trust is one of the key elements in making the connected city really come alive. And that's the revolution that I would like to see. Thank you.